Bueno, pues buenos días a todos.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Congress on DRT for All. Thank you for having chosen this workshop for teleassistance and telecare. I am Estíbaliz Ochoa, and I work in innovation, and I will be the moderator. We have with us today We'll have three presentations today. Each will be about 15 minutes long, and then we'll have, at the end, time for questions. I don't want to take any longer because we are very tight on time. So without further delay, I would like to introduce the two speakers who will talk about prevention of home risk through the study of lifestyles and teleassistance. We have Luis Sanchez Risech and Domingo Garcia Fernandez Caro. Domingo is a psychologist from the University of Seville, and he's a doctor in psychology from Cadiz. He is director of residences and he works in Cadiz. He has been a professor for more than 20 years in the University of Cadiz as well. And Luis is a biologist from the University of Barcelona. He has a master in marketing and commercial management from ISEAT. And he has a postgrad degree for elderly persons from the University of Barcelona. So, Domingo and Luis, when you like, the floor is yours.
Bueno, buenos días a todos.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Domingo Garcia. I'd like to thank, first of all, the organizers of this International Congress for the chance to share with all of you the results of a research project that we undertook last year. The project wanted to verify the impact of incidences and emergencies in the life of fragile individuals by studying their daily habits and behaviors. And as you will see later, we saw that the behavior of these persons is modified or changed after the accidents or incidents at home, but also we can modify their behavior before, which helps us prevent accidents and injury through telecare and health care. And we we would like to implant this at a big scale, and this would help us make much headway, and we can save many people from having accidents. And we are a company, Personalia, under the ONCE Foundation ONCE. We give service to elderly and dependent persons, and we have services for residencies and home health. We have teleassistance and telecare, and today Personalia has 8 residential centers, day centers, with capacity for almost 1,000 persons, 8 services for daily care, and then we serve 47,000 users in home teleassistance, and we have 300 users in home help. Then we saw a clear opportunity to introduce technology to help dependent persons. Before we took on the study, we made a first analysis of the most recent studies in the scope or the sphere, and we saw that there was a great amount that described new technologies being used as supports for assistance. We also studied lifestyle habits in elderly, but we found few studies that mixed both aspects and their relationship with incidents that technology could be used to help prevent at home. And so in 2012, we approached the Town Council of Madrid and using this a Barber scale, we wanted to undertake a project of this time based on the assumptions that changes in user lifestyles could help prevent risk and incidents in their lives. This was what we started out with, our initial plan, and based on the hypothesis that I just mentioned, we had three objectives. First of all, to characterize the habits of fragile persons in order to define the thresholds of normality and abnormality, and then to look at we wanted to define this and be able to prevent specifically problems when we were looking at different activities. And in second place, we wanted to verify the acceptance of technology used at home in order to cover as much as possible the daily activities of persons in their home. And using technology, once we explained the way we would deploy the technology, we went into a practical aspect and wanted to propose different technologies to be used at home to be a viable way for implanting this at a large scale for many people in the population who have fragile existences. And in this project, we had a high number of professionals and collaborators from Personalia participating, and we have co-authors of Antonio Jimenez Lara with much experience in social projects. We also have Luis Sanchez, who has much experience as well, and then Fernando Montalegre and the subdirector of Personalia and his team. And then Luis Sanchez will describe in a succinct way the results of this experience. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Hello. We're still in a transition with this topic, however, but I'll talk about the methodology we used and how we've managed it. First of all, the group of users, when we speak about service for the elderly or for persons with some type of dependence, it was clear that we have a huge, very diverse population. So we wanted to bring this down to as much of a homogeneous group as possible. But there is so much diversity that it was very difficult. But we looked at fragile individuals. And you know that Barber is the scale that we use generally to evaluate or assess fragility in persons. It's a combined scale with behavior and personalities. And the first thing we did was look at teleassistance, which was the base of contact that we had with most of these persons involved in the study. And we see the four first. They were over 75 years of age. They had multiple pathologies that were chronic. They had recently changed their place of residence or had been hospitalized. They were isolated from others, and they had scarce economic resources. Maybe social relations were problematic as well. These were the four characteristics that were filters for us, and we had 40 persons we studied. They were cataloged as having 4 or more factors in the Barber scale. The Barber scale is composed of 8 factors. So we had an average or a high average fragility incidence in the people that we assessed. What did we do? Well, basically, I'll tell you what we used, what devices, but we implemented devices that were unobtrusive and discreet in the homes, and we monitored 24 hours a day during 6 months' time all the activities of the individuals. During their sleeping hours, when they were resting, we looked at their habits of continence, their personal hygiene when they would leave and go out from their homes. We observed them when they were eating as well. And one important factor somehow was the type of the activity, daily activity, physical activity, and this was very significant in order to evaluate how we could prevent problems and injuries and incidences. And we also wanted to look from a quantitative and qualitative point of view, all of the information that these devices provided us with. Every time the central headquarters received information, we wanted to monitor the incoming data to see the distribution of this data and how their frequency, the incidence frequency, and see the trends each week in the different flows of information. It was where there were obviously peaks, 2 or 3 peaks every week. That was quite normal, but we saw that this type of behavior could be concluded as being usual. And then we also analyzed many other factors, and we applied an algorithm, a logical numerical quantifying algorithm, which was something that tries to estimate using numerical data the periods of activity that are associated. Each sensor sent out an on and off signal. So this algorithm would estimate the 20 ons and the 50 offs of a certain device during the day. They could say how many hours and minutes it had been on. So this was helpful to find out how much the device was being used in the home and what was normal or abnormal. And then we, qualitatively speaking, we looked at the global analysis of behavior and to see if it was consistent or coherent or not with everything else. We looked at a questionnaire that was a personal survey where we could obtain interesting information on lifestyles and life quality. And then we also were able to use our attention center to register, as we did with all users, but especially with these, each contact and interaction. So when there was an emergency, if someone fell or had to go to the hospital, we knew exactly at what time of day and what hour the incident had occurred, and it was easier to map it that way. I mentioned also that we had a qualitative session with the persons involved in the study. That this gave us direct feedback, telling them about the study and how things were going. And on the other hand, it helped us get feedback from them to confirm some of our findings. And this infrastructure that we implemented, well, here you can see briefly what we did. And first, I'd like to say that before we initiated the project, we were looking to see the best technological option available. We had 2 points. We had ICTs, and we also, where we are now, and we had, this was something that allowed us to have specific sensors that we could use to implement a domestic network with different alarms and devices. And then coming from the world of assistance and having already other technologies implemented, we thought it would be much more easy to develop that type of technology, despite the fact that ICT technology did have great attractiveness for us. But here, briefly, I would like to cite that we implemented 3 types of technology: magnetic technology that detects the opening and closing of doors. We use this on the refrigerator door, the front door of the home. We placed 5 presence detectors with infrared signals, and we had this in the kitchen and the bathroom, and we had in the bedroom, and then we had a contact pressure in a detector in the main chair used in the living room and in the bed. And so this helped us cover the space in in the home where the individual was most likely to be at any given point in the day. And technology, by definition, was absolutely unobtrusive, and didn't interrupt the person's daily life. We had one little problem, which is sort of a joke. One user killed or murdered a sensor. This means that it was a sensor in her bed, and one night she was just a little unaware, and she thought it was a cockroach, and she killed it. That was the only specific incidents that we had. Of course, we replaced the device with a new one, but that was the only real specific incidents that we had with technology and users. This is a bit of the summary of the tools that I mentioned. On the one hand, you can see calls to the Teleassistance Center, and then the registering of data from the sensors. The qualitative part, which is qualitative and quantitative, the algorithms, and this helps us understand the periods of specific activities and presence. Now we'll go on to results, and our objective was not to obtain sociological results. That wasn't the main focus, but we had such an important sociologist in our team that we were able to detect three important results. There were 10% men only, 36 women, and there were 16 users with serious or severe dependency, and practically 40% had dependence issues. In all cases, the home assistance or teleassistance was 100% used, and it was when we asked about what task they could do perfectly with perfect autonomy and which ones they could not. The level of autonomy was about 52%, but the quality of life was 60%. So normally all of the persons had a type of lifestyle and an environment that allowed them to, despite their limitations and dependency, to have significant life quality. And then another factor that's very important is the third, and even with little implementation of technology before the study, it was seeing what the technology was, what it meant for the users. And here we have the main aspects: security, safety, feeling safe, the help in certain tasks, and in health, the control of the environment, and communication. These are the main sociological factors I wanted to cite. Then prevention of home risk was also an important part of the study, and looking at the incidents of different types that occurred. We had 74 incidents in 26 users of the total population. We had all types of incidents, from falls, hospitalization, and even one user died during the study, unfortunately. And so this wide scope of incidences was very important in how we were able to map out the different incidences that had occurred before we were able to detect the problem. And obviously, we can see how behavior is modified by these technologies many times, but also in many cases a great number of activities are modified. And this helps us open up 100% the preventive nature of these technologies and take advantage of this. I don't have enough time to go over all the things I have here, but in each of the 5 different scopes of activity, we decided ultimately to look at the behaviors we could consider to be normal and which we could consider to be abnormal, in sleep, the number of hours of sleep, One fact was the fragmentation of sleep, of waking and in sleeping hours was very interrupted in most of the population. They would these were behaviors that were considered normal. And we also need to say that in this type of behavior or habits, lifestyle habits, we can't reach general conclusions for all fragile persons. Each person has his or her own personal average that is useful for that individual. But in the other three types of activity, we can find commonalities and extend this to patterns applicable to all. And when we calculate the inactivity, when the persons are not doing anything, this is very sensitive. When there has been an incident such as a fall, the activity goes down enormously. And in continence and personal hygiene, this is another one of the three habits that we wanted to mention. We have a global way of assessing this. These also in leaving home, going out from the home, it must be mentioned that there are users with very limited levels, but almost all left home. This was sometimes they were accompanied, of course, by third persons, but the reduction of the going out accompanied or unaccompanied clearly defined or indicated that there could have been an incidence that should be borne in mind for some later actions. And then lastly, as a big activity, this is very complex, but it's cooking and preparing food. The kitchen in and of itself and the cleaning up, the cooking, the cleaning up. There's a very wide spectrum of activity, and so not all of, sometimes we had to have 5 different devices following to see the time used in and outside the kitchen with related to food and eating and cleaning up of the kitchen. So these are the 2 final slides. We're very interested, based on the conclusions, to be able to get to something that we could really apply and not just have simple research, but we wanted something that we could use to improve the way we are providing service and others are providing service in home health or in telecare and teleassistance. So we decided to formulate all of our findings and see how we can integrate the findings in our alarm system, so when an operator receives an alarm, an action can be taken by the receptor. And basically what we're lacking is technology that helps us set off and send out alarms. But here we have a list of we have a personal profile of the user that we have to come up. We have to measure the global activity or inactivity of the individual. We have to see the hours of sleep or resting that the person does at night and the daily time that the person rests at home on the sofa or whatever. And this, when we see changes in this, we can sometimes see that alarms are activated. And then we have to look at the fragmentation of sleep when it's much higher than normal. That's a warning sign. And we have periods of continence that are when there's a difference. That's another warning factor. And presence in the kitchen that is not related necessarily to eating or preparing food. As you see, these are all different factors for alarms, but this is a way that we might think that these factors could set off alarms, and the professional could call the individual or someone in the individual's family to make sure that everything is all right. And we've entitled our presentation, the project, prevention of home risk through the study of lifestyles, but we had unobtrusive, discrete technology. This was very important for the personal autonomy. And this is really all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much, Domingo. It's been very interesting, and I hope that we have some time for questions later, because I certainly would like to have to ask a few. And now we'll start with the presentation that I'm going to give, which is on PASOS, protocols or steps, protocols for teleassistance with centers of attention. And before I start to explain steps or PASOS, I would like to briefly present Texas and Vodafone Foundation. And you can, Fundación Vodafone Spain is a private entity with a nonprofit, and its purpose is to improve the life of persons who are elderly or have some sort of disability. And then technologies that are accessible, they should be, existent technologies should be made accessible for all disabled persons. And we need to avoid the digital gap as much as possible and use technologies existent in the market and apply them to new areas where they can be helpful. And with this we can have technology, especially mobile technology that we specialize in for helping persons with disabilities. Fundación Tescos or Fundación Vodafone España has made a lot of headway, but we need to involve persons to keep on making progress. So we're always looking for entities associated with users. And this is the case of the Vodafone Foundation with Red Cross Spain. So there's been a very close collaboration, and they founded together Fundación Texos. And Red Cross provides social know-how, and Vodafone provides technological or technology. And this is a project that they work on jointly. There are two lines of investigation or research, which is social participation. Here we see many projects have been completed successfully, and some even are offered as services for users. And currently we're working along this line in the Enredate project, which is a project that was presented here 2 years ago at the Drt4all. And what it attempts to do is to create a social digital network for the elderly, and they can communicate with volunteers, with family members, with persons at headquarters, and use the tablet, which is a lot easier for the elderly than the television or PCs. And also another line is to improve teleassistance, mobile teleassistance. And it's not something that should just be available at specific terminals, but also be available at conventional terminals. And you can lower the cost of service this way and reach a much greater number of users. And also with this, you don't have to just have oral communication, but with these devices, you can also begin to consider trying to reach other users, such as the deaf, using text messages. And not only that, you can internationalize this technology and reach many countries using the mobile forward of the foundation, and through technology with Texos and Red Cross and Vodafone. This is reaching the UK, Italy, and many other countries that are launching it now.
La teleasistencia móvil.
The mobile teleassistance is the evolution of the fixed teleassistance. The assistance at home is a service. It's a very solid service that now exists for more than 20 years. It has around 500,000 users, and these users, when the home teleassistant started, told us that they not only wanted to be safe at home, but also outside. In that years there were technological limits. The mobile communication was not the communication that we have now. And some years later, in 2002, Texas was the pioneer in this, because they launched a pilot project with around 200 users, where they validated that these things that the users were telling us was very useful, because this mobile technology was covering needs for these users. How does this mobile teleassistance work? Well, we have the user terminal. As you can see in this photograph, is a specific terminal, but during the last years we have been working on it so that it can be a conventional terminal. It was at about 200 euros, and now you can find an Android terminal by around 80 euros, so that we can globalize that service. We have a 24 hours support service, and we have the communication channel that is a mobile communication, so the user, when is in trouble, pushes the button, the emergency button, and there's a voice call to the support center. This call is not only received in this call center, but in this center they will know who is calling, which is the calling history, which is his medical record, etc. So it's a very personalized and personalized call, and we are improving, and they can also see where this person is. The communication between the mobile device and the support center is where we have the protocol. Is the communication language between the mobile and the central and the center. What was happening until now, that is when these things are changing during these last years. Well, before, what we had is that every manufacturer had its own protocol. Every terminal spoke a different protocol with the support centers. This has many troubles, because there's not interoperability for all the value chain, not only for one, but for example, for the administrations, if they wanted to change of the service provider, because the administrations have been the ones that have boosted these mobile teleassistants. They had to change everything, even the devices of the users. What happened for the users? Well, the users had very limited terminals. They weren't adapted to their needs. For the manufacturers, well, it was an extra cost, because they have to dedicate a lot of effort to design that protocol, or they had the possibility of buying the protocol offered by other providers with the license cost that it involves, and also for the providers of teleassistance, because it was not agile to provide more terminals. They had to update to change everything. What we are trying is that all manufacturers of teleassistance can buy this protocol, the protocol Pasos, so that we can have just one language of communication. We want it to be open, to be accessible for everyone, and it has a non-profit target. The benefits of passes are obvious for providers. Well, they can buy more terminals. Reducing incorporation of a new terminal. There's not a development cost for the manufacturers. They say this costs the integration. You can reach to a bigger number of users, and for the administration can be even transparent the change from one provider to another. You lower the costs because you don't have to invest in these different protocols, and you can reach to a bigger number of users. How have we done this work? Well, we created different working groups. There was a coordinator, which was the Foundation Texas, that was in charge of coordinating all the working groups. The working technical group was formed by the most important manufacturers, not only from Spain but also from out of Spain, by certifiers. We have some examples here: advisors, Spalogic, for example, and for example certifiers, Drt4all2013. This group had the mission of establishing specifications of this mobile protocol, and to adapt it to the new situations, to create new versions and to adapt it to their teleassistance systems. Another interest group was the group of the administrations, because the administrations have been the promoters of this teleassistance in our country. They have boosted this kind of technology, so this group had to receive this information and the benefits of this protocol. We have felt very supported by the CEAPAC, that has made a lot of efforts in promoting this protocol. The INSERSO, the Basque government, in which, for example, in the terms and conditions of they were asking for this protocol to be used. You have all the groups here, and the other entities are entities that haven't belonged to the technical group, but that have included this protocol within their different systems. When we started to establish this protocol, we wanted it to be a de facto standard, so that all the manufacturers could adopt it because of its benefits. But after some meetings with AENOR, which is the main entity of standardization in Spain, we realized that we could even reach further. Instead of being a de facto standard, could be an official standard. And after some meetings, we called a new working group for standardization. There was a lot of previous work already done, and with these new incorporations, with these new entities, for example, Red Cross, the Alaris group, the teleassistance group, etc., were included in this working group. We accomplished that this year at last this could become a reality, which is the Spanish rule. And we don't want to stop here, but we'll try this rule to be adopted abroad, as it has been adopted by AENOR. And now with this we have this standard, and we would like the teleassistance to cover other kind of collectives, for example, deaf people, etc. And here you can see a photograph of some of the members of the working group and of the participant entities. We have a website where you can see how the story has moved on, the different steps that we have done to accomplish this rule, and the information of the project and my email direction. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Me gustaría dar paso a Xavier.
I'd like to give the floor to Xavier Contillor-Cullere, which will make a presentation about the plug-and-play device, about software, which is it's a mobile device. Well, he works in Catalonia, and when you want, you have the floor.
Buenos días a todos. Soy
Good morning, everyone. I'm Xavier Contillok. I work in the Center of Research and Investigation of Catalonia. We are a private investigation center that is dedicated to develop investigation lines for SMEs through public or private financing. We work within European projects or similar projects. Well, I'll introduce Softcare. It's a collaboration project which is marked within the program Assisting Living, which wants to give an answer to the needs of the European population. I think you are aware of, but the European population is getting old because the population is aging, and in 2030 the amount of population with more than 6 years will be much higher, and we have to give some answers to the needs of these elderly people. One of the biggest problems that we can see now are the fall when they fall and when they fall to the floor, because it affects 1 of every 3 persons of more than 65 years, and if we've taken into account that the elderly people will increase during the next years, we have to take this into account. We have detected that one of the factors that one of the most dangerous factors is the long lights, which talks about being on the floor during 1 hour or more because of limitations or physical limitations, or because the elderly person is unconscious or whatever. These long lights end into a stay in the hospital or even in death. There are some studies that suggest that fast sensor for long lights can reduce the death cases, for example, in an 80%. So having a fall detector that prevents the elderly people to be on the floor without any kind of help would have a great significance for the hospitalization level and for the subsequent death. This is not new. There are many telecare devices that want to detect falls, but many of them don't take into account the needs of all the actors that take part in the teleassistance process. When I talk about actors, I'm talking about elderly people, the distributors, etc. Basically, talking with the associates of the project, we have distinguished 4 main aspects that have to be satisfied by these platforms, teleassistance platforms. First of all, the loyalty. We are talking about falls that can translate into death. We in Softcare have in order to accomplish this requisite, we have outsourced the algorithms of falls detections to a server. We don't detect the fall within the device, but the device sends the data to an external server, and we decide if there has been a fall or not. The second is the acceptation of the user. If the device is intrusive, non-ergonomic, very visible, stigmatizing, etc. If the user don't like it, he won't use it. The low cost of installation and maintenance, the providers of technological platforms can't assume very expensive installations, but well, they can assume them, but the price will be much higher. And the same happens with the maintenance. If every week, if every month they have to go home by home, changing batteries, etc., the price would be much higher. And finally, the permanent coverage. The devices have to be capable of detecting events in every situation of the daily life, in the shower, sleeping, etc. For example, a usual device, it's a device that it's in the belt of the trousers, but we can't use the device in the shower or sleeping. Well, we'll present the models of our system software. Software basically forms an internal network with the protocol FIB, which is and the platform is formed by some nodes that are directly plugged to the user's home, and a gateway. It can be well, it's basically a SIG that makes the conversion between the internal network and the internet. Finally, we need servers that compiles the data from the internal network, and this server decides if there is an event, an alarm, etc. And the emergency, and we launch the emergency protocol to the responsible of the care of this person. The system enables us to detect faults, to distinguish different kinds of activity. This system is designed to distinguish between walking, cooking or resting. We distinguish different kinds of activity. For example, an activity, a low or high level of activity, and we'll localize the activity in his or her house. We'll localize him or her through the power. Through the static node receives the information. The activity algorithms of activity and or falling are based on the data that we receive. This is the accelerometry. We can detect impacts, and this data will be subsequently analyzed on the server, etc. At the functioning level, where the communication protocol, the device sends every 4 seconds some acceleration measures to the static nodes, which are connected in the different rooms where the user should be. We compile this information sent by the device. They add the power with which they have received this information. The power can be translated remotely from between the device and the static node, and this information is sent to the gateway that resends this data to the server, and the server infers the activity and the localization of the user in his or her house. What happens if there's a peak of acceleration, for example, an impact, a fall, or whatever? The usual way of functioning interrupts, and we receive some detailed information of the changes in acceleration in the previous moment of the impact. This information is sent to the gateway, and the gateway resends this information to the server, and the server decides if there has been a fall or if the impact has been because any other kind of event. At installation level, well, it's very simple, mainly plug and play. We wear the device, we plug the static nodes in the different rooms that we want to cover, and we start the installation program. In the installation program, we're talking about about training the system so that it can learn the behavior patterns of the users, so that they can detect the different activities of this user, to walk, to cook, to walk, and to rest. And the user is moving through all the rooms in which he or she will be localized later. There, we do a mapping of localization. Now we're getting to the technical part of algorithms. The detection of faults, basically, we do it basically with artificial intelligence algorithms that analyze what we call acceleration stream. You can see it in the photograph. That's an acceleration peak, and the previous moment of this peak. This corresponds to 0.8 seconds in time. Well, these acceleration data are sent to the server, and the server, through these algorithms, decides if it has been a fall or not. The novelty of our algorithm is the way that we have to extract the characteristics of the acceleration. With a stream like this one, we want to know if it's about a fall or another event, what we call false alarm. We have mixed, in order to extract these significant characteristics of the acceleration streams, we have mixed transformation and selection techniques of movement. I won't get into much detail because I'm running out of time, but we extract the redundant information from the stream, and we only get the characteristics that distinguish the falls from other events. At the level of activity detection, it is made through the acceleration, the angle in which the device is positioned. Well, this is an angle and this is another angle, and the difference between the maximum and the minimum angle. Through this, every minute we can infer which activity is being made by the user. The detection of activity is basically an artificial intelligence algorithm which is distributed in 3 blocks. The first block is the acceleration, angle and deviation, infers which gestures are being done by the user. This system classifies this information depending on the gestures. These data are stored during 1 minute, and then there is a percentage of the time that the user has been making every gesture, and the second block infers the final activity. Well, I've said that, well, I was saying because the activity classificator every time has a kind of activity. Every time it will have one of the 5 activities, but the user can be, for example, washing or doing 1,000 different things. So the third block is an activity filter that pretends to reject activities that haven't been detected that haven't been detected with no many frequency. Well, this is another artificial intelligence algorithm which detects the power with which every signal is detected, so that we can know where the user is. If we had the node 1, for example, in the kitchen, the power with which we receive the information of the node 1 will know that the user is in the kitchen. We have defined some thresholds of acceleration and of angle variation, and from these thresholds we are detecting if the user is having a low, medium or high inactivity. And finally, and briefly, I would like to give some information of the algorithm of fall detection. We simulate false alarms and falls, and the more usual are, for example, to leave, for example, the hand go down. These are the most frequent ones. there were a total of 104 false alarms, and regarding the false, we used 38 volunteers between 35 and 50 years, and they simulated 4 kinds of falls. And this would constitute a database that we use not only for train but also for develop the algorithm. There are 70% of this data were for training, to train the algorithms, and the rest of the data to test the algorithm, to see the reliability of our algorithm. What you can see here are formulas to evaluate the reliability of the algorithm, and they basically relate the capability of detecting false with the ability of capability of avoiding false alarms. We made 3,000 experiments, and in every experiment we selected randomly the training and the test group. So with this we wanted not to give results depending on a certain group of a certain training group. You can see the results here. Our algorithm, the first one that presents the highest values of reliability. The second, an extraction of characteristics algorithm of acceleration stream, which is known as PCA algorithm, it's in some standard. And the third one is classifying the acceleration stream without extracting the characteristics. Our method for extracting the relevant characteristics of an acceleration stream works much better than the rest. At the quantitative study, we, as an average, obtained a reliability of 92.24%, and in some groups, nearly 97%. It's quite high reliability, taking into account the current commercial devices. And now finally, the system was tested with real users, 5 users during a month. The test took place in Vienna. They were recruited by the Red Cross in Vienna, and it enabled us to extract some conclusions about for example, the localization is reliable, but it has to be refined for some kind of houses. For example, if the kitchen and the room are in the same room, if there are walls between the rooms, etc. The activity had some promising results, but there were some behaviors that was causing instability to the system, and the detection of the activity level was very useful. They told us that that this measure was very solid. And finally, well, there weren't any kind of there weren't false, but there were just 3 false alarms during the test, and they were always related with one device which was broken by one user. So the fact of avoiding false alarms was accomplished. Well, that's all. Thank you.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias a los tres.
Thank you very much, all of you. And I'm sorry, but we have no time for questions because we're very short on time. But we'll be here all day long. So if you have any questions, you can ask them directly to the speakers. Thank you very much.